Welcome to Prajim Technologies. I am Venkat. This is part 11, switch statement in C#. In part 10, we have seen how if statements work in C#. So in this session, we will learn switch statement, break statement, and goto statement. So when do we actually use switch statement? Actually, multiple if-else statements can be replaced with a switch statement. If you look at this slide, on the left-hand side, we have multiple if-else-if statements which are actually replaced by a switch statement. Let's look at an example. Let's prompt the user to enter a number. So please enter a number. And once the user has entered the number, we'll go ahead and store it in a variable called user number. So we read that number that the user has entered from the console, and we need to convert that to integer, and we use the int.parse method to do that job for us. So once you have the number that the user has entered, you can basically make use of switch statement. First, let's write the program using if statement. If user number equal to 10, then we can say console.writeLine your number is 10. Now, similarly, else if the number is 20, then user number is 20. Else if it's 30, then we print the message your number is 30. If it's not 10, 20, or 30, then we'll have an else part where we will say your number is not 10, 20, and 30, something else. Number is not 10, 20, and 30. Okay, now if you look at this particular program, it's pretty simple. So let's go ahead and run that. So please enter a number. We are asking the user to enter a number. So once he enters, let's say for example 20, and presses enter, it says your number is 20. Okay, so what's happening here? It first checks, okay, is your number 10? Now it comes to the else if part. Your number is 20. Yes, it prints this line, and then it won't bother checking the other conditions because this is else if. In the previous part we have seen why. Okay, now this entire if else if section can actually be replaced with a switch statement. So let's see how to do that. So instead of using that multiple if else statements, I can say switch, and I want to switch on this user number. Okay, so switch on the user number, and now the value in that user number can be any integer. So my case statement should actually be an integer. For example, it can be 10. So if it is 10, what is it that you want to do? I want to print a message onto this console saying that your number is 10. So we will say your number is 10. And we need to have a break statement. Okay, all I have to do if the number is 10 is print that the number is 10 and break out of the switch statement. Okay, similarly, if the number is 20 and 30, if the number is 20, then we want to print a message saying that the number is 20. If it is 30, then we want to print a message saying so. And if it is not 10, 20, or 30, then we can have a default case where we can say your number is not 10, 20, and 30. Your number is not 10, 20, and 30. And then obviously break out of the switch statement. So instead of multiple else if statements, we are using switch statements, switch in case. So what's going to happen here? The number that the user has entered we get that into this variable, and if it is 10, this piece of code gets executed. If it is 20, this piece of code, and so on and so forth. And we need to have break statement after each case statement. Okay, so if it's 10, it executes this and breaks out of the switch statement. So if I go ahead and run this program, and if I enter, let's say 20, so it comes to that piece, 20, executes that line and breaks out of the switch statement. So break statement, why do we use it? To break out of the switch statement so that the rest of the pieces of code are not executed. Okay, now let's slightly change this program to to understand another concept. We can have multiple case statements together. Actually, I can remove that, and a slight modification to this program. So I'm saying case 10, 20, and 30, your number is 30. Instead of hard coding that, what I can do is I can use a placeholder, and then if it is 10, 20, or 30, print that number. If it is anything else, then we say your number is not 10, 20, and 30. Effectively, what we are doing here is we are joining multiple case statements together. Now, this case statement doesn't have any code. This case statement doesn't have any code. The only code that's present is on this case statement. So if the user number is 10 or 20, what's going to happen? It comes here, there's no code to execute, so it falls to this, and there's no code to execute here as well, so it falls to this code, this case, and then executes this code. So for case 10, 20, or 30, the same piece of code gets executed. So it's possible to combine case statements together like this if you want the same piece of code to be executed for those conditions. Okay, so now if I go ahead and run my program, there isn't going to be any visible difference except that we have structured that a little different. So if I go ahead and enter 20, your number is 20. All right. So we have seen how to replace multiple if-else statements with a switch statement. Now we also have seen how to join multiple case statements together. And now we will understand go-to statement. Actually, we'll create a productive, a simple practical application, maybe a coffee purchasing program. Okay, this is going to consume a little of time, so we will do that in our next session. Thank you for listening. Have a great day. Hello, welcome to Prajim Technologies. I'm Venkat. This is part 12, switch statement continued. In part 10, we have seen if statement. In part 11, we have seen the introduction to switch statement. In this part, we will write a sample coffee purchasing program using switch, goto, and break statements. So let's get into the demo. Now I want to write a very simple program which enables people to buy coffee and ultimately present a bill. So first let's present a menu to the user, console.writeLine. And our coffee shop sells 3 sizes of coffees, small, 1 for small, 2, maybe 2 for medium, and 3 for large. Okay, so once the user has made a choice, he will enter his choice on the console, 1, 2, or 3. We need to read that from the console, and let's store that in a variable. Let's call that variable user choice. So console.readLine reads the number in the form of a string, so we need to convert that to integer, and we do that using the parse method. So once we have converted that to integer, now we need to decide, okay, in our coffee shop, the small coffee cost is maybe $1, medium coffee $2, and large coffee $3. So we have to calculate the cost accordingly. So to store the cost of the coffee, let's create a variable int. Maybe we'll call this total coffee cost, and we'll initialize that to 0. So we will switch on the user's choice. So if user's choice is case 1, in the sense he has selected a small coffee costs $1. So we can say total coffee cost plus equals 1. Okay, whereas on the other hand, if the user has purchased a medium or a large coffee, if it's medium, then the cost of the um, coffee is 2. If it is large, then the cost of the coffee is $3. Alright, if the user has selected any other option apart from 1, 2 or 3, we want to present an error message on the screen saying that his choice is invalid. So on a default console.writeLine, whatever his choice was, so your choice is invalid and his choice is present in that user's choice variable, so we print that. And then we break out of this loop. So look at this. Until now, we have written a very simple program. All we are doing is present a menu to the user, and the user will select one of the options. And once he enters his choice, if it's 1, we are calculating it as $1, $2, $3 respectively. If it's not any of those choices from the menu, then we present a message saying that invalid user choice. So let's go ahead and run this. At this point, okay, it's asking the user to enter his choice there. So if I enter 2, so press any key to continue. It's not doing anything. We are just calculating the total cost, but we are not printing the message. So let's go ahead and do that. So finally, when he is done with his coffee shopping, so console.writeLine, thank you for shopping with us. And we need to present the bill amount. So console.writeLine and whatever is the bill amount. Bill amount equals total coffee cost. So we are printing the total coffee cost. Now if we go ahead and run that, okay, so we have to choose from those options. Let's say I want to buy a large coffee. I enter 3. So thank you for shopping with us. Bill amount equals 3. Now let's make this program a little more interactive by allowing the user to buy, to shop as long as he wants. Because right now, if he wants to buy another coffee, he has to run the program again. Rather than doing that, let's put this program in some kind of a loop using goto statement so that he can continue shopping as many coffees as he wants until he decides, okay, I don't want to buy any coffee. Then we will terminate the program. Let's see how to do that instead of running this every time he wants to buy a coffee. So we want to present the bill at the last after he finishes shopping. So even before that, we will ask the user console.writeLine do you want to buy another coffee? And the options for these are yes or no. Okay, so the user now will enter yes or no. So we have to read his choice from the console and store that in a string variable, user choice. Okay, we already have that variable called user choice, so we'll use user decision, maybe user decision whether he wants to buy another coffee or not. So we can use another switch statement or if else, it's up to you, but let's use switch statement because we are learning about that right now. So switch on user decision. Okay, now there's an important thing to note here. Now look at this. Here in the first switch statement, the data type is actually integer. So if the user choice is 1, 1 is an integer, 2 is an integer, 3 is an integer, and we are storing that in this variable of type integer. So the case is actually an integer. Because we are switching on an integer data type, your case has to respect that. So if it's an integer here that you're switching on, it has to be integer on every case except for the default. Similarly, here the user decision variable is carrying a string data type. Okay, so now when you switch, you're switching on a string data type, so your case has to match that data type, and strings are usually within double quotes. So if yes, he wants to continue shopping. So if he wants to continue shopping, we want to present the menu to him once again. So we want the control to go here, so we create a label. And what's a label? We'll just come to that in just a while. It's kind of a marker. Okay, so I'm creating a label called start. Now, we will talk about labels in just a minute. So if the user wants to buy, another coffee, we have to go to start. So what we are saying is, okay, he wants to buy another coffee. So the control will immediately go to start. And then it again presents a menu to the user, and as usual the process goes on until it comes back here again. Okay, so what's a label? A label is a kind of a marker in a program, where your go-to can jump. Okay, if this label is not here, I don't know to tell my program how to go to this console.write line, go there and start executing that again. So that's why we can mark our code with labels. So this position in this program is called as start, and if the user decides to buy another coffee, I want the control to jump to this location and start executing the code from there again. So a label is a marker in the code to identify a location where you want the control to jump back. So on the other hand, if the case is no, if the user has decided, okay, I have done enough shopping, I don't want to buy any more coffee, then he can just quit. So what we do here, we don't do anything, just break out of the case statement there. And if it is a default, he didn't enter yes or no, he entered something else. So at this point of time, we want to present him with an error message that his choice is invalid. So what do? Console.writeLine. Your choice is invalid. Your choice is invalid. Please try again. Okay, and then it has to go back to this location here. Okay, because we asked him to enter yes or no, but he entered some garbage which the program cannot recognize. Okay, so we need to ask him, okay, the options are very clear, it has to be yes or no, nothing else. Okay, so we need to tell the program to go there and start executing that piece of code again, and to do that we need a second marker there. So let's say we call this as decide location. Okay, the user has to decide whether he wants to buy the coffee or not. So what we can do here is go to decide. Okay, so it goes here, and again it asks the user whether he wants to, continue purchasing another coffee or not. Now another important thing to notice here is that every case statement, usually if you look on the top, every case statement has a break statement, meaning if this case is true, execute this piece of code and break out of the switch statement. Okay, but here in this switch statement, we either have break or go to. So we don't have to use break if I use go to, Because look at this, the moment I hover my mouse away, there is a green squiggly there. A green squiggly in C sharp indicates it's a warning, it's not an error. Okay, and if you look at the IntelliSense, it says unreachable code detected. That means this piece of code is never going to get executed. Because why? If this condition is met, if the user decision is yes, we are saying go to start. So what happens? The control immediately jumps back to the start label at the top of our program and starts executing from there. So this code will never get executed. So there is no need to have the break statement. It already is getting out of the switch statement when it encounters this goto. So there is no need to include break statement if you have a goto statement there. All right, so let's go ahead and run our application and see if it works fine without issues. So it's asking the user to choose. Let's say I want to buy a large coffee. Do you want to buy another coffee? I would say no, maybe garbage. Your choice. Okay, so there is a problem. Our program, we haven't substituted a value for that placeholder. So let's fix that. So your choice, we need to enter that there. User decision. Okay, whatever he has typed. So let's go ahead and run this. Okay, so let's say I want to buy a medium coffee this time. So do you want to buy another coffee? I say garbage. Your choice, whatever is invalid, please try again. So it's working as expected. Now let's say I want to buy another coffee. Yes. Okay, let's say I want to buy another medium coffee. Now it's asking me, do you want to buy another coffee? Let's say I enter all capital letters. Look at that. I'm saying yes, but I'm entering all capital letters. Let's say, see again, your program says your choice, yes, is invalid. Yes is yes, whether it's small or capital letters. So my program is not kind of treating that yes as yes because the case doesn't match. So let's make our program consider all forms of S, whether it is small or capital or a mix of capital and small letters. So how do we do that? Once we get the user decision, okay, however he enters that, small letters, capital letters, or mix of them, okay, we will base our decision on a consistent scheme. So these labels, case labels, yes, no, they're all capital letters. So whatever the user enters, I'm going to convert that to an uppercase using this function. Okay, on the string, I'm calling a function called toUpper, which will convert all the characters in that string to an uppercase. So now, no matter what the user types, it will all be uppercase. And if it is yes word, it will matches yes. If it's no, it matches no. Otherwise, it gets into the default. We will talk about string manipulation functions in a later module in a very great detail when we actually cover functions in this module. So let's go ahead and run this. So 1 for small, 2 for medium, 3 for large. Let's say I enter some 234, which is not a valid menu. Your choice 234 is invalid. Do you want to buy another coffee? Now this is problematic. Now I mean my choice is invalid, so it should go back and say, okay, your choice 234 is invalid. So you have to choose 1, 2, or 3. So my first switch statement is not working as expected. So let's go and fix that. So if it is default, instead of going to this one, do you want to buy another coffee, because I haven't made a purchase yet. Okay, so what I can do, instead of breaking here, I can just say go to start, meaning my choice is an invalid choice, so I didn't end up buying a coffee. So go back to the start location and execute again. Okay, and just to make this program, select your coffee. So please select your coffee size. Let's say I enter 234 now. Your choice 234 is invalid. Please select your coffee size. So let's say I want to buy a large coffee. Do you want to buy another coffee? Let's say I enter a mix of small and capital letters. Say yes. Please select your coffee size. Let's say I want to buy another large coffee. Look at this now. Irrespective of whatever I have entered, mix of small and capital letters, it's still working. If I enter all small letters, it still works. So let's say another large coffee. So until now I have purchased 3 large coffees. So if the program is working as expected, a large coffee costs $3. So 3 into 3 dollars is $9 is my total bill. At this point I want to conclude my shopping, so I will type no. Thank you for shopping with us. Bill amount is $9. Press any key to continue. When I do that, the program terminates. So it's a very simple program basically. Multiple two switch statements that we are using. Okay. So that's it for today. Thank you for listening. And just before we wind up, let's go ahead and conclude. So break statement. So if break statement is used inside a switch statement, the control will leave the switch statement. That's what we have seen. And go to statement, you can either jump to another case statement or to a specified label. So using go to, you can actually jump to another case statement. For example, let's say I want to go to case 1. From here, I can actually do that. I can say go to case 1, and it works without any without any problem. Let's say I build this. Um, okay, go to case 1. Case is small letter. So if I build this in the status bar, you can see that build succeeded. So using goto, you can jump to a label or you can jump to another case statement. Okay, but using goto is a very bad programming style. We should avoid goto by all means. This because if the control jumps randomly from one location to another location, debugging of that program will become extremely complex. And anything that you can achieve with the goto statement can be achieved with loops. Later in loops module, we will rewrite this same program using a while and do while loop. Okay, and we can, by all means, if there is a possibility to avoid goto statements, please do so, because it makes programs more complex to debug. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.